afternoon, folks. Ready to get started with our next talk. Just as a heads up for everybody, across the hall, we have a workshop beginning called Compliance Here Simple, Pick 2, if anybody's interested. And in this talk, we have Reid Brosko, IT security engineer on the red team at CDI, with lots of experience in both the cyber and the physical side of security. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Reid.
All right. Yay! We'll see if we can stretch this the hour. If not, you get out a little early. All right. So today, Sentry on the wall. Show of hands. Anyone heard of Sentry MBA? Okay. So all right. We'll start from the ground up. Starting with, bear with me. I'm not a marketing guy. Use slides. They're very basic. They're very whatever. My name's Reid Brosko. I'm a Marine veteran, MARSOC, Yankee White. I hold a top secret clearance. I've been working in the IT security field around 7 years. I know for a lot of people that's very young in the IT field. Some people have been in this a lot longer. 5 years specifically, though, in the red team field doing assessments. Everything from banking, manufacturing, Fortune 500, Fortune 50, as well as energy and SCADA device assessments. Working with some of the stuff, I've worked with Wolf on some of his SCADA stuff that you may have heard him talk about earlier. Recently got my CISP. That was a fun one to get. Highly recommend it if you're ever if you're in the IT field, as most of you are. That's why you're here. Personally, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Just ran my first Ironman. I love anything that gets my heart racing, and yeah. So to preface this, even before we get into the Sentry MBA, breaches. We hear about breaches every single day. Every single news feed is coming. There's a new breach, be a small mom and pop credit card, emails, user account information, anything. Breaches from skimmers in devices or anything. Just to give you an idea, these are some of the biggest ones that we've hit probably in the past 5 years. TRICARE, which is the military healthcare provider. 5 million accounts compromised simply from that one. Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison was one of the more recent ones. 33 million accounts compromised from that one. Home Depot. 56 million. Target, 70 million. JP Morgan Chase, 76 million. Everyone's favorite, PlayStation Network, 77 million. Anthem, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield, that hack was about 80 million. TJ Maxx, one of the most basic ones, was just simply skimming devices and getting into the computer system, was 94 million accounts compromised. Healthland Payment Systems, this is the companies that basically give the devices to retailers, say swipe the card, whatever. When that was compromised, that bled out 130 million compromised accounts. And eBay, everyone's favorite, the biggest hitting in the last couple of years, was 145 million accounts compromised. Just on that screen right there, just think about the number of accounts. How many of you use or have swiped a credit card at Target or TJ Maxx or have a PlayStation Network or utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield or anything on there? How many people does that affect right there? I'd say a good amount. And if you've been a victim of one of these, you know it's not just, okay, I get a new card. It can take time to get your identity back. It can get time to identify where things have been used and your name or your credit card number has been used. Some stats about breaches. This is all the fun number stuff before we start getting into the actual fun tool. And it'll all blend together. So 38% of global organizations claim that they are prepared for a sophisticated cyber attack. Only 38% of companies say that they could deal with it. Having the right backup, having the right protection, having the right people in place or incident response, that they can respond, move the backups, or mitigate anything that some cyber attacker might do. 781 breaches, publicized breaches, within 2015. Now, there's countless numbers that don't fall into that area that require companies to publicize that breach, so a mom and pop or anything like that, or that might be not even username or email account compromisation that they don't even have to publicize. So this is just publicized breaches within 2015. Now on the darknet, those accounts that are compromised that contain sensitive information, credit card numbers, username, emails, passwords, any PII, personal identifiable information, can range from anywhere from $154 to $330 or $63, depending on that information that is contained within those accounts. Over the last year, from 2014 to 2015, we saw an uptick of 38% of security incidents. We're seeing that rampant increase in the rampant security incidents everywhere from the skimmers to SCADA devices that we saw with Target with the HVAC and everything like that. There are multiple ways that people are getting into these environments, getting these accounts as we become more of a connected device environment. And then that last one, 707 million. Think about that. 707 million records stolen. Here's the breakdown of that 707 million by industry. Surprising to a lot of them, the biggest one is government. We see this a lot of time because of third-party actors. We see this a lot with a recent hack that we saw across multiple email vendors, and we saw a lot of emails coming up in Russia and everything like that with Gmail, Hotmail, and Yahoo and everything else. Healthcare, which is the next biggest one because all the PII, all the records within the healthcare that have your home address, your social security number on it, your insurance information on it. Other falls into categories that aren't listed on here. Don't ask me what it is because I think this covers the majority of them. Technology, so this is industries like that PlayStation Network. You're seeing this within investment industries or anything like that. Retail, so that Target, that Home Depot only accounts for 6% of that 707 million compromised accounts. Education used to be the front runner because education was where you would have the smallest budgetary aspect for IT security. You weren't worried so much about IT security in some of the educational fields back in the day. And that's where we saw a lot of breaches with schools, online schools, and other areas of pulling tuition information, home information, contact information, and selling that information off. And surprisingly, coming in last, you have the financial district. Only 1% of that 707 million accounts was from the financial. Now this is just looking at accounts with sensitive information in it. This is just looking at not just breaching the accounts and getting the hash. This is clear text passwords or usernames within that. By the numbers, this is just 2016 so far. You've had a LinkedIn account. This goes past all the numbers that we looked at before. This is just what we're looking at now. LinkedIn, 17 million emails and passwords compromised. These four big ones that we're seeing here are just going to be focusing on emails, usernames, and password compromisation because this is where we're going to start blending into the Sentry MBA. That multiple email vendor that I talked about before, the Gmail, the Hotmail, Yahoo, across the Microsoft emails where we saw over, 270 million emails, username, and passwords start surfacing up in the Russian darknets. The Verizon was 1.5 emails, passwords, and credentials and PII. So this is billing information, credit card information. This is home addresses, phone numbers, anything like that. That was one of the bigger recent ones. And then another JP Morgan Chase. This one was only 14 million, and this was not only JP Morgan, but I believe 14 other subsidiaries of under the umbrella of JP Morgan that had compromised information of usernames, emails, and passwords. So now we start getting into the Sentry MBA. What is Sentry MBA? Sentry is a darknet tool that has just now started to surface and move towards a more open source platform. It's easy to get now, it's easy to use, it's very GUI, and it's very modular. And you can customize it. You can make this do whatever you want it to do. It was meant as an automated credential stuffing tool, where we all know about brute forcing of just taking a username and throwing 100 passwords at it to try to get that password. We know about password spraying, of taking the reverse, of taking 100 usernames and throwing one password at it and saying if we can hit any of those. Credential stuffing is taking that breach information, that Ashley Madison dump of usernames and passwords, taking that database, stripping out the username and stripping out the password, and importing it into the tool and saying, hey, here's your list. Here's your username list. Here's your password list. What do I want to point it at? YouTube? Okay. Netflix? How many people reuse their username and password across multiple different vendors? Take that, let's throw it at YouTube or Netflix and see how many of those work. It's an open source framework, as I touched on before. This is continuously changing. This is continuously being modified by the users and the developers. There's an open forum on the Sentry MBA website where you can say, hey, I want this feature on it, and I've seen within a month a new update come out for for Sentry to say, okay, well, here's a new module that was requested, here's a download for it, here's a plugin for it if you want it. The modular design gives the users exactly what they want, only what they want, in a very streamlined approach. It utilizes a config and combo list, so the configs are something you can download from as far as the breaches. In combo lists, you can import your own combo list. If you've got a list of, say you're going after a database, and you've got a list of usernames, default usernames, and default passwords, you can import it and say, hey, go after that a web-facing database or anything like that and point it at it. You can import proxy lists into that. That's one of my favorite things with this is you've seen a lot of stuff now banning by IP, where with authentication. So if you fail 3 times, you're blacklisted for 30 minutes on IP. You upload a proxy list to this as large as you want. Each individual authentication attempt against that portal that you're going after will bounce proxy after. So you're no longer dealing with blacklisting or timeouts or anything like that. And now we're starting to see it ever since it started to surface. You're starting to see this rampant in the wild, in the industry. I've had a couple different clients that I've dealt with that we've identified Sentry being used through some of the stuff I'll go through later. And then there's countless write-ups of companies stepping in after breaches, breach after breach after breach after breach, and they're wondering how these people are getting in, analyzing the traffic, analyzing the logs, and they're seeing hundreds of thousands of authentication attempts, and they're tying it back to Sentry. As we touched on a second ago, there are some prerequisites with the Sentry MBA. The config file is something that you can import, you can download, you can create your own if you'd like. The config file basically tells Sentry what you want to go after. Where's the portal? If it's a www/login AWOWA, if it's a custom one, if it's got custom fail entries, if it's got custom 404 errors, what's the validation that I've logged in? What is it looking for? Is it looking for a keyword in the HTML that says your account or anything like that? Is it looking at what's being replicated? Is it looking, what does it want to do? That config file is something you can create, or you can have someone else create, as I'll show in a few slides. They're everywhere. No matter what you want it on, for Pokemon Go, for Spotify, for Netflix, for anything, they're out there. The combo list and word list, simple simple username, email, directory list, common usernames. Depending on what you're going after, kind of dictates what you want to import into it. If it's something like Netflix that requires a username, or excuse me, an email rather than a username, you import a different combo list rather than a username, which will fail across the board. And then the proxy list. Once again, this can be a list of HTTP proxies or SOCKS proxies that you can download. There's how many different companies out there that'll provide you with lists. There's a fun tool that I like to use, a proxy finder, that'll just basically reach out to the web, scrape all the proxies, put them into a nice little file that you can import. Sentry MBA, you can't really see that in here, but Sentry.mba is the simple site to go to. With the caveat that to get anything off this site, you have to be authenticated within the site. And to create an account within this site, you have to have an invite code. To get the invite code, you have to basically go on and talk to people in IRC channels, dark web, and either get them from them, get an invite code from someone that's already got access, or there's people out there selling invite codes anywhere from, I've seen $50 all the way up to $250 for an invite code into the device. But once you're in there, there's the clean download of Sentry MBA. There's a clean download of, I don't know if I can just turn this into real, of config files that are uploaded and combo lists. Can't really see down here. 1,000 different configs. These are just the simple configs. You can see some stuff up here. There's Pokemon Go. There's Swag Bucks. There's Path of Exile. Dominoes, Tribal, CBS, all different types, Groupon, all different config files that all you have to do is buy these with gold, which to get gold you have to cash in Bitcoins. It's the only thing they accept. Import these configs within the Sentry MBA and point your list at it and go. Here's just a sampling. There's over 1,000 different combo lists. These are just the larger ones. Hard to read, but here's 1 million combos, 100,000 email combinations, 5K porn combinations, 13K, 1.3K, all different lists of just lists upon lists of username, password, email password, or just known passwords that people scrape from these dumps. The other thing you use within this is all the dumps. So the Ashley Madison dump, if you could get that off a Pastebin or anything that you see off Pastebin, you simply pull down and import into your file. It doesn't have to be a combo list pulled down from Sentry. Any combo list will work. Now comes the fun part. Well, this is all theoretical from now on. This is things you could do. This is things that could be done, not say have been done, or that Google Images may. You're entering the theoretical zone now. Yes, let's have some fun now. Now we're past all the fun stuff, all the boring stuff. Sentry. This is now getting into the actual tool. So if you were to boot up Sentry, you would see firsthand, it's got some really weird artwork in it. Throughout the environment is really kind of weird stuff, kind of like this. You get a mermaid on one page, you get very weird things. It does come with a nice little disclaimer on the very first thing that once you boot up Sentry. It's a Windows-based product, won't work in Kali, so it has to be run on a Windows machine. But it does work very easily in a simple exe file that you just load. Exactly. If you were to ever install it and have it, you should expect it to only work on Windows. But I've heard from some Reddit posts and Twitch people I got a lot of this stuff from Twitch. Someone was streaming. So this is the image I came across when I Google imaged the Sentry MBA tool. Few things to point out within here. This is the landing page, so I've heard, of the Sentry. And you've got a couple different things on the side of the general settings, the headers, if you want to manipulate your header to basically hide the user strings or hide where you are. The proxy setting, if you've got a specific proxy string that you want to use. The list down here is where you're going to import proxies, and I'll get into that later. But the first thing right off the bat you need to do is that config file. Whether you're importing a config file that you've downloaded from a computer that didn't work. Okay, let's see if this launches again. There we go. All right. Whether you're downloading this config from Sentry or I'm importing it, if you download a config file, this load snapshot is where that config is going to be loaded. Simply click that, point it to the config file that you've downloaded from Sentry or from any forums of Cracker forums or Hacker Forum or anything like that. They're out there. Just Google search Sentry MBA config, and it's scary the amount that is out there already. Now, if you weren't going to load a config file and you had a specific portal that you wanted to point it at, the site right up here is where you put that in. That specific URL of that authentication portal that you wanted to go after. Once you load a config file, so I've heard, it'll populate the information already for you. So you'll see it loading Spotify.com. Spotify, I've heard, is it's a real easy one. It was a recent one, kind of small sampling, small groupings. Whoever did this just kind of chose it because it was an easy one. Next, I like that tool too. Proxy Finder. Once again, I said proxies from anywhere. There's email chains you can subscribe to get a new proxy list every 24 hours. Proxy Finder is a nice tool that will just go out there, scrape the web, and import all the proxies. Click Save, and import them into the Sentry MBA tool. So back under that lists here, you see proxy lists. Import, and it'll give you all the information of how many you've imported, and it'll run a quick check on those proxies. See, are they active? Are they up and running? Will they work with the Sentry MBA tool? So you can see whoever did this imported 960 proxies, but 5 of them were banned. So we've got about 955 proxies to work with. Word lists. Whoa, don't speak down. Okay. Word lists. This is where those combo lists are going to come into play. Whether you get it from that Sentry, the website, whether you import your own, whether you have access to a breach. This, I've heard, is from a breach. This is directly from a Spotify breach that has happened and that was publicized on Pastebin. And it's simple as the same thing as the proxy. Click word list. Click upload and upload them. Now there's different things where you can, if you've got an actual generated word list, you can import it here. If you've got just a list of usernames that you like to use, import it here. If you've got passwords, it's very self-explanatory, and that's what's kind of so scary about this. It's very GUI, it's very easy, it's very script kiddie-esque of point, click, go, tech. Now that you have everything, you've got the word lists, you've got the proxies, you've got your area you want to attack or go after, authenticate attempt. Now you move down to the progression tab. And this is where you can kind of customize some features within the actual attempt. So you can list the number, choose the number of bots that you want, the sequential amount of actual attempts made at that website, be it one individual account at a time, all the way up to 100 of, I want 100 attempts off of my list at a time. If it fails, bounce a proxy and test another email or test another password. The word list position here is where if you start something and have to end it and you only get through, say, 15 accounts, you don't have to start at the very beginning. You can start that word list wherever you want. If you got through 25 attempts, move it to 26 and it'll start on that 26th attempt. This is where you're going to start seeing, once you start the actual attack, of where you're going to see a lot of the information. You're going to see the custom 404s that pop up, whether it's a 404 or a 200 or any other specific code. You're going to get the progress, total number of attempts that it's made, total number of retries of unauthenticated or areas, and the proxy list of the number of proxies that it used, and then the results. So you're going to get the number of hits, you're going to get the all the information, number left to do, and then down here and into this information will give you actually what's going on in the environment. So I will caveat this with, once again, this is theoretical. If someone was to ever do this, it's hypothetical. This is, I made these slides in Paint, so yeah. So if this was to actually go active, yes. Uh-huh. Yep. No, that's a number sequential. 100. It's going to attempt. It's going to open 100 different. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So once it goes, it goes. Progress. We're sitting at 31% right now. We have 26 hits already. This is information pulled down directly from a breach, I've heard. This is information that you're taking that are open sourced on Pastebin, on the configs, on the internet. This is not stuff that takes any skill set to get. It may take some skill set to get the tool itself, because yeah, you can download Sentry MBA from a lot of different areas, run it in a sandbox and check your stuff, but it's not hard to do. You upload a couple files, let it go, and you can see, here's a username it tests, here's the password it attempts. If it's a user or email and password, you'll put it in here, and then you'll see here all the different things. If the password failed, you can see, let's see, source successful, keyword found, your account. So that's that config file saying, this is how it knows. If you're into the account, you're going to see in the HTML code, your account. So it can see your account, that one's successful, and it'll populate it within this hits down here, and it'll tell you what the username is, what the password is, where it was attacked at, why it found it attacked, and what proxy it used to do it. You'll also see the failed attempts, the keyword found incorrect username or password. And as you can see, it's bouncing proxy every single time it hits. So you're not having blacklisting, you're not having timeouts or anything like that. Let it go a little bit longer. I've heard this only took about 10 minutes. Took me longer to create the actual paint images, but 100% done. 275 active accounts logged into out of 519. So after that breach, 275 people did not change passwords on that account. That's a scary thing right there. Because how many of these different accounts can I take, like I said before, and not point it at Spotify? Let's point it at Netflix. Let's point it at eBay. Let's point it at PayPal. Let's point it at a bank account, Fifth Third, Credit Union One, Bank of America, USAA, whatever it may be. What else can I do with this? And this is just a small sampling. We saw some of those other config files and some of those other lists of millions of usernames, millions of passwords. That was a fancy one. And we're seeing it evolving, in just the time that I have been working with this product. I've seen it go through 5 different iterations, seen features dropped, features added. This isn't a keyhole thing. It's not meant to do just credential stuffing of pulling in the passwords from breaches. You can make this do anything you want as far as authentication attempts and brute forcing. If you want it to do non-proxy and you want to set timers for it to do, I want you to do an account every 30 seconds. I want you to do an attempt every 30 seconds. It can do that. If you've got a custom list that you wanted to use, you can do that. If you want a specific URL, it doesn't have to be a config file from Sentry or someone else has created. You can create your own if you know your own thing. If you say you wanted theoretically to go after a bank, I don't know the inner workings of that website. I go to Joe Schmo's credit union, open up an account, put $5 in it. I've got now access to online banking. I now have a username and password that gets me into their banking system. Now I know I can say what validates within that banking system, what the validation of login is, what's the validation of failed attempts is. I can create my own config, download one of those million attempts things, and point it at that bank and go to town on that bank. It takes no more than that. It's all as deep as you want to get into this. The user influence, as I said before, is rampant throughout it. The forums on that Sentry MBA, once you get access to it, are riddled with plugins, features that people have custom written to add into it as far as other things that they wanted to do. The configs you can find anywhere on the internet. Doesn't have to be within that Sentry MBA website. They're just, like I said again, Google it. It'll be scary the amount you come back with. The cracking forums are all over it. The hacking forums are all over it. Even just open source Reddit forums are all over it, just as far as, hey, I used Netflix. You're seeing people do the Netflix just because I don't want to pay for a Netflix account. I don't want to pay for a Spotify account. Well, I got 207, well, theoretically I had 275 accounts. Well, whoever did that did. One of the latest things I've seen that's getting pretty advanced, a little bit scary now also, is all these companies are going to CAPTCHAs. CAPTCHAs on their website to beat the automated tools, to beat the to beat the bots out there from stop people from just crawling. There's now Death by CAPTCHA plugin for this where it can beat CAPTCHA successfully beat the Google's API CAPTCHA, which is said to be the market or the trademark of everyone to go after. That is the best one. I don't know how it works, but basically you import that plugin into the device and you say, go. If it hits a CAPTCHA, it's got OCR within it that'll identify the information from it. And as I said before, we've seen it in the wild. Not only have I seen it in the wild with companies that I have worked for or companies that I've done assessments for, and they come back to us to say, hey, we just got hit with an attack. There was an abnormal amount of authentication attempts, no account lockouts, but it just generated an enormous amount of logs within our syslog server of the authenticated attempts. This was a security company that did a white paper on it when it first went public last year. They stepped into an environment that had multiple accounts breached, multiple identities stolen, multiple fraudulent actions within the company, and they'd remediate one, within a week they'd have another one hit. Remediate it, would have another one hit. And they were to a point where they didn't know what was going on. So they hired this third-party company to step in, and they looked at just a month of sampling data from December to January 2015 into 2016. 1 week in December, 5 million login attempts on Fortune 100 business to consumer sites. So these are places where credit cards are being passed. Credit cards could be stored. Personal information as far as shipping records, emails, passwords into that account, anything like that are being stored and being utilized. 5 million in a 1-week time period. Over a 2-day time period in January, 2 large retailers saw 20,000 login attempts. 2 days in one major vendor saw 2 different attacks. A single day in January with a large retailer saw 10,000 login attempts. These are not big. You could see some of those config files. There's lists of 300,000 out there. There's lists of 1 million. There's lists of anything. These are very targeted attacks. And we're starting to see them move not only from the web-based aspect into the mobile aspect. You can run this off of and point it at mobile devices, running it off of an SDK, and basically point it at the mobile authentication pages to utilize not only a web-based but mobile. As I touched on before, that identification of Sentry within environment is a big thing. There are default user strings that are always present. No matter if you change the HTTP settings within that settings tab, there are these 5 user strings that are always present. This is the telltale sign of Sentry being used, because the big thing that they use off of it is an outdated, older version of Mozilla and Firefox within it. So it's Mozilla 5.0. These have been tied directly to the Sentry attacks. Even the latest version is the 1.4.1 still has these embedded in them. And these are an easy way, if you see within your logs, to identify of a potential Sentry attack. And the other thing is OWASP. In web, OWASP is God. The threat handbook outlines everything you need to do to set up precautions around this. So monitoring logs. Those companies that saw the 6 million attempts, where's the sysadmin monitoring those logs? Where's alerting within those logs to say, you know what, in a 24-hour period, I've had 20,000 failed attempts. Where's the alert? Where's the email? Where's the person identifying that, or not person, but where's the alerting for that, and where's the red flag raised up? Abnormal authentication levels, 20,000, I don't care the size of your, well, I do care the size of your company, 20,000 failed login attempts, I would imagine is pretty high. Even for, say, something like an Amazon, or not Amazon, yeah, Amazon. No, they're because you're going to have stuff crawling it all the time, but it's something to keep an eye out for. Increased failed authentication and accounts being used multiple times over and over again for different activities, as far as logins at different times. If there's 2 accounts active at the same time in different areas, different IPs, alerting and monitoring of that information is the biggest thing that's going to be there. There's nothing that's going to stop Sentry MBA altogether but there are ways to help prevent it with complex passwords, proper alerting, and maintenance of systems. I did not stretch that long enough. I've talked enough. Any questions?
How much more to continue to drop? Can you go to the expensive?
If you theoretically wanted to buy gold, I think when someone bought gold, it was $20 for 3,000, or $20 worth of a Bitcoin for 3,000 gold. So if we go back to, the actual thing, give you an idea. The config. So let's see. Pokemon Go is 1 gold. Some of the larger ones that have CAPTCHAs, that have everything in it already. So that's the breach data. That's the configuration, the usernames, the passwords, the proxy list, everything like that that comes with a capture are going to be a little bit more. So you see right here, API Amazon proxy list is $1,500, so $10 for that config. The combo lists are usually a little bit more. You see some of the larger ones. Here's a 10,000, and that's 1.4 million usernames and passwords. This is 291,000 emails and passwords. The config files are a little bit larger, but once again, there's other places you can go to get this stuff. Pastebin, ReconNG will feed you some of this information. If you've got 60 grand to spend on a pwned list API, you've got the access to every single breach database that would be out there. But once again, that's 60 grand to get that API. With the two-factor authentication, that will there's no tie-ins to it right now as far as being able to utilize that. So that is a great feature or great thing to have on Amazon, anything like that. Toward it, yeah. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that, but the one thing, and I don't know, there is one. This guy Google is huge on Sentry. Well, it's if you use a certain amount of gold, you get what the hell do they call it? It's not donor. It's another status, but you get a gold label and you get access to the back end of it. So you get a lot dev access. So you get a lot more of the stuff that isn't out on the public facing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, failed login attempts. Yes, in a 1 month period. After the fact, yeah. This is them, a third-party security company stepping into a large retailer, large parent company retailer. Yeah. I don't know. This was going, yeah. Oh, I'd imagine a very large amount, or like we all know, it only takes one to get in. But if you're going for mass account compromisation in a 1 month period, you're hitting 6 billion failed or login attempts on the portals. Absolutely. Exactly, another form of it. Yeah. Not that I'm aware of right now. I have seen that I've heard that that's within the forums of the device, and I do see a lot of people asking for being able to link multiple instances of Sentry together to basically do larger scale attacks and larger scale authentication attempts, but currently no. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm. Be able to scrape those proxy lists together and have the same list that these are all. Someone used just an open source proxy list that's available to anyone. You can tie that to back to a proxy list, which gives you another thread that possibly could be Sentry involved. Anything else? All right, thank you.